So each one of us, individually and humankind collectively, is spirit in motion, ever transforming. This motion, this process of ever transforming, has 4 stages to it: dissolving, imagining, reforming, and flying. And then the cycle begins again. But each time for us, we affirm at a higher and higher level of awareness. Remember a few Sundays back we talked about the evolutionary process being a circular upward movement. So you're not going straight up, but you're going like that as we go up. But before we're looking at our theme for today, the stage of dissolving, which is kind of yucky, let's look at the overall theme for the month, which is spirit in motion, being the transformation. We often talk about transformation. In fact, one of my favorite quotes from the Bible is, "Be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind." And one of these days I'm going to have that painted across the arch there, because it's just a wonderful reminder. And personal transformation is really what we teach here. But what does it mean to transform? What does it really mean? Anybody want to take a... No, not yet.
Not yet?
No. But what does it mean? I'm just asking, what does it mean to transform?
Change, grow, become new,
Okay.
alive,
Okay.
aware.
Okay. Well, transforming is more than just changing. It's more than just improving who we are. It's more than just becoming a brighter, bigger version of what is right now. To transform is to become something or someone that heretofore has never existed. Hi, Polly. The dictionary, because I love to look up words, defines transform as to change a thing into another, or to change from one form to another. Now, spiritually, we know that there is nothing to change into, nothing to become, because we already are divine, right? We already are perfect expressions of God right here, right now. Just like the song says, I love myself the way I am, and yet I want to grow. We are where we are already in a state of perfection. But let me give you a koan. And do you know what a koan is? Has anyone ever heard of a koan? I hadn't either.
It's a last name.
Thank you. A koan, it's K-O-A-N. A koan is a seemingly paradoxical statement used in Zen Buddhism to meditate upon for enlightenment. So, here is your koan for today. Transformation is the process of becoming that which we already are. So we can meditate on that one for a while. Let me say it again, because I think it's pretty deep. Transformation is the process of becoming that which we already are. So we got that? All right. So we already are God in expression. We already are whole. We are perfect. We're complete. And that spiritually, this is true. But at the same time, on this human plane of existence, those who are awake, those who are on the evolutionary path, are in the business of removing anything that blocks that perfect expression. And that's just such a good visual for me. It's nothing that we need to change or do that is that difficult. All we need to do is remove whatever is in the way and casting darkness or a shadow upon our spiritual perfection. I once heard it said that enlightenment is not about adding anything, but rather the process of elimination. We at our center, and all of the centers actually of spiritual living, all New Thought churches, we're in the business of transformation, aren't we? Transformation of self, transformation of humankind. We've evolved from being merely interested in spiritual growth to being interested in transformation. The status quo just isn't good enough anymore. And so, in the process of transformation, of becoming someone entirely new, but which already exists, something must first happen. And that something is dissolving. Just as the earth breaks apart in order for a flower, a seed, to push through and burst forth into expression, sometimes our lives can take on the look of breaking apart, don't they? They can do that as well. But are they really? Or are they simply making room for something more beautiful to emerge? So our topic today is actually a question. Are you falling apart or are you falling together? And I want to begin our discussion of dissolving with a modern day parable. And when I first found this parable, I thought, well, that just seems silly. But as I read it several times more, it really started to make sense, and I could see the message, as parables so often are. There's the hidden messages in there. So this is the parable of the goldfish, which lived in a goldfish bowl in the bedroom of a little girl. He would swim around and around every day. He swam, and then he would swim and swim the other way. This was his life, swimming one way and then the other way, and getting fed once a day. That was it. That was his life. One day he thought to himself, geez, this is not a very exciting life. I think I'm meant to do more than this. He had not a clue what that was, but he was very dissatisfied with his little goldfish life. While he was feeling dissatisfied with this goldfish life, the little girl who owned him was feeling dissatisfied with having a fish. She wanted a pet she could play with and cuddle with that would run and greet her when she came home from school. She wanted a dog. So she started on her parents about wanting a dog and getting a dog. You know how children can do that. Can I have a dog? Can I have a dog? Can I have a dog? Right? Can I please have a dog?
Have you been?
Or adults sometimes.
Can I have a duck? And they always said, no, you have a fish. A fish is good. Parents really prefer fish. They're so much easier than other pets, except when my daughters decided that the fish was cold and needed to be dried off. The fish didn't last very long.
Yeah.
What happened to the fish? Oh, he was tired of being in the water.
Flush him down the toilet.
Okay. And they said, they're so much easier to care for. And you can only have one pet. So your fish, you have your fish, and that is good. Well, the little girl wanted a dog so badly that one night she thought, well, if Mom says I can only have one pet and I already have a fish, maybe it's time for the fish to take a walk. So in the middle of the night, she got up, took her goldfish bowl into the bathroom, opened the lid of the toilet seat, and quietly dumped the fish into the toilet. Now the fish is wondering what in the world is going on. He had never experienced anything like this before. The rush of water, going into another bunch of water, and all of a sudden there was all this noise, and he started to swirl downward very quickly. And he went through these pipes really fast, and he was really scared, and he couldn't imagine what was going on. And he knew that he'd better hang on tight. So as he went into these pipes and then into this place that's not very pleasant at all, he found that it was very yucky and stinky, and he just, didn't know what to do, but he knew what he knows, and that was to swim. It's his job, and that's what he does. He swims, and he thinks, maybe if I just keep swimming, I will get out of this horrible place. And for Disney fans, I pictured Dory. Just keep swimming, just keep swimming, just keep swimming, right? And so he swims all throughout the days of it. It's really hard, and it's mucky, and it's thick, and he's just working really hard. And he's praying, please get me out of this. I can't stand it. But he keeps at it. He keeps going. And every now and then he gets really tired, so he takes a little nap. But he wakes up, and he's still there. Darn. So he keeps on swimming. And he swims through this stuff, and as he does, his little fins start to build muscle, and they start to develop. And he doesn't realize what he's developing, how strong he's getting. But he keeps swimming all through the shucky stuff, and he's getting stronger and stronger. And there's, just more than one time when he says, forget it, I give up, I cannot do this anymore. And then something in him says, no, keep swimming. So he does. He continues to swim. He doesn't know for how long. He just knows that he's been swimming for a very long time. And eventually something begins to change. He begins to think that perhaps some fresh water is coming in, and the fresh water is good. Maybe it's been treated or something, and it's the yuckiness that's been there for so long starts to get less and less. And this fresh water that might even be treated with something is coming in on him, and he keeps going through, and he keeps going through, and pretty soon it gets less and less yucky, and then he's in this pool of pretty nice water. And then all of a sudden he gets sucked into another pipe, and he's sent out into the biggest, freshest bowl of water he's ever experienced in his life, and it is called the ocean. And there he is in the ocean, and he looks at his little fish self, and he thought, I am not the same fish as I was before. And it's true. He wasn't. In fact, he'd transformed into a dolphin. There he was, this magnificent being, free in the ocean, jumping and playing, and he never felt so alive, and it was magnificent. Then he looked over at the shore and he saw a little girl, and he thought to himself, I know that little girl. And at the first he was very angry at her for what she'd done to him. But then he thought, wait a minute, if she hadn't done whatever she did, I wouldn't be here now. So he swam over to the shore and he beckoned her over with his dolphin call, and she jumped on his back, and off they went to play in the ocean. Oh, the process of dissolving can be a little stinky. It can be a little challenging, no doubt about it. It is, or should I say, we can make it, the most difficult stage of our evolutionary process, and it can be the scariest of all. So the best thing to do is to just get over it or get through it. Matthew Fox says, in order to pick up something new or anything new, we must let go of what it is we're holding on to. Because if we're holding on, then our hands aren't open to receive, right? But so often we struggle with not wanting to let go of what we are holding on because we don't want to go through the scary and stinky times. Sometimes we must even liquefy before we can transform. Did you know, and this was interesting to me, that the caterpillar does not change into a butterfly? He doesn't go into the cocoon and sprout little wings and shorten his body and suck in his multitude of legs. No, inside of the cocoon that he spins, the caterpillar is reduced to a puddle of goo, a glob of DNA, and it's out of that puddle of goo that the butterfly then arises. Anybody here ever feel like a puddle of goo? I think we all have. It's really important concept for you to grasp as you experience this stage called dissolving. And this is it. It is until it isn't. Isn't that profound? It is until it isn't. Become aware of when it is no longer. Stay in the present to the process of dissolving, whether you like it or not. Don't argue with the past or plead with the future. Oh my gosh, I have been in situations where I have been dissolving and I have pleaded with the past and definitely with the future as well. But the more you resist, the more painful the dissolution is, because we know that what we resist persists. It is until it isn't. And when I say, or when you say, I accept what is for now, the pain of disillusion doesn't last as long. When you say, I accept what is for now, you let go of resistance. This reminds me of someone having a cold. I have seen this so often. They're at work. They're miserable. No, it's just allergies, that's what they first say. And, you can just tell they're just miserable. And they're working away and you're saying, hey, your body's trying to tell yourself, that, no, I can do this. And they keep fighting and fighting and fighting. And finally they go, I can't do this. And they go home. And once they stop resisting, the cold is allowed to move through them and they're better. And it happens just like that. Whatever we're resisting, we're holding to us. When we stop resisting, it goes through us. When we use our energy to resist what is, we don't have the energy to get better or to put toward figuring out a situation, right? We're so busy fighting that we're not going, well, how could this be different? What different choices could I make? A personal example I can share with you is an insight that I recently had about my habit of going straight to panic and fear where financial matters are concerned. It's just an old habit. I usually can turn myself around pretty quickly, but in the past I would really get stuck and stay there, and I'd experience this fear and this stress and all the what ifs, imagining all sorts of horrors and for my future, which, can I just say that none of them have ever happened over my entire lifespan. Everything I've been afraid that was going to happen because of this one little thing never did. Or blaming my past for choices and decisions. If only I would have done this, or could have done this, or should have done that. Woulda, coulda, shouldas. Wow, I can think back on all the choices I should have made so I wasn't here right now. What a waste of energy. But we all have our triggers, don't we? we really work hard at our spiritual growth and we think, I'm on it, I'm on the right track, this feels so good. And then bam, one little bill from the IRS and your day is shot. Wow. In the past, something like that would have resisted embodying the truth that I know is true. And I've experienced this over and over and over again. And I know why I do, because I'm still working on it. You keep getting the lessons until you get them. And so when we got this bill, it came about, 3 or 4 weeks after we had just paid a huge IRS bill off, and we were feeling pretty good about, making that happen. And so this one shows up. It's like, are you kidding me, And it was just the type of thing that I would just go into complete, it's too much, stop kicking me. I just got up, right? And I'd just been there, and I'd done that, so I wasn't going to go there again. Right then, something inside me. I stayed totally conscious and in the present moment. Something deep inside me just knew that it was okay. And I didn't know how. I just knew we had to call our tax person and that it would all be straightened out. And I didn't know how, but I knew that it would be fine. And that's the key. We don't have to know how the things are going to work out. In that initial moment, I had a choice. I could have fallen back into my old habits, but I accepted the moment for what it was, and it changed the way that I approached the entire experience. All of a sudden, I had all this energy, to say, okay, this is what we need to do. If I'd stayed in that fear moment, how much time would I have wasted being there? No, let's just call our tax person. Let's move on with this. Let's just keep this, let's just keep it going, right? When you say, accept what is for now, and how are you going to fix this one, God? The stress, the anxiety, the fear, it doesn't last as long because you've let go. Let go of that resistance. And it frees up so much energy that can be used to generate ideas for solving the challenge, as well as energy for affirmations and affirmative prayer. Because it's like you can only be in one room at a time in your house, right? You can't be in all your rooms. You can only entertain one thought in your mind at a time. So choose the thought that you want to be entertaining. Know that if you're entertaining fear, you're not entertaining what's going to create your next experience. You're not entertaining the affirmations, the positive thoughts, the affirmative prayers, because you're only in one space at one time in your mind. Although we women like to think that we're thinking about a million things at one time. It's really only one thing at a time. I can say that because there's only one other woman here with me. As my dear teacher, Reverend Sandy, used to say, and friend, Reverend Sandy Freeman Loomis, she was known for saying, and she still is, God is so good all of the time. And she would have her whole congregation, anytime she'd say, God is so good, and they would all say, all of the time. It was wonderful. But I want you to say this with me now. I accept what is for now.
I accept what is for now.
And then add, I am more than this. God is more than this. I am more than this. God is more than this. Polly just reminded me recently with the saying, don't tell God how big your problems are. Tell your problems how big your God is.
That's nice.
Remember, it is the heat, intense heat, that takes the coal and transforms it into a diamond. But I decided this month that I wanted to do more than just talk about these stages and give you my examples. I wanted you to hear from you, all of you, anyone who would like to share. Let me know for the future weeks. I have picked out Rich this morning. I want you to hear about someone who knows about the dissolving stage, and his story goes like this. Rich?
I wasn't sure in the talk when this came. Well, I wanted to be Elvis Presley. No, I didn't want to be Elvis Presley. Back about 30 years ago, I was in sort of a dead-end job. When I say sort of, it was a dead-end job. I wasn't going anywhere. Two bosses I had weren't particularly pleased with me for one reason or another. It was funny, we used to do these budget narratives. And so I remember one year I did the budget narrative and it came back and there was all these marks and this and that. And so the next year, I took exactly what he wrote from the previous year and used his language and sent it in, and it came back with all these marks. And
you couldn't win.
Yeah, I couldn't win there. And I knew it, but sometimes you even get comfortable in your misery. Simultaneously, I had had a relationship, and that was sort of it had ended, and so that was sort of one of those times where you were, I don't care what anybody says, sort of traumatized by the whole thing that it ended. And thirdly, I think the third thing in my life was I really had no spiritual source. Growing up, we didn't go to church. My family never went to church. The only time we'd go to church was go to a wedding or a funeral. My dad was a Catholic, and my mother had gone to Christian Science. I'd gone to a couple Baptist Sunday schools where my grandmother used to go, but just a couple times. Going into my teens, and I'd have a girlfriend, and they'd take me to a Catholic church or a Lutheran church or Presbyterian, but nothing ever really resonated with me. It just wasn't resonating. So here I was sort of caught in a job that wasn't going anywhere, but I was somewhat comfortable in it. A relationship that had just ended, so I was sort of going through all those type of things, and I really had no spiritual anchor. Nothing spiritually to read or to, help me with my growth. I was healthy. That was probably the one good thing in that time period. And thank you, God, for that. But one day at work, an individual said, "Why don't you come to church with me?" And I was a little, I don't know, She says, "No, I think you'll really like this church. It's really different, but I think you'll enjoy going." And so I finally consented to go and met her at her house, and then we went to this church. And it was a religious science church. So I sat down in these real big cushiony seats. It was more like a theater than this here. And there was a stage and everything. And up on the wall was "Be transformed by the renewal of your mind." That was a big sign up there. And so they played a couple songs, and I really never was too much, and I still am not into all these churches where you go and they sing 47 songs. Just never has done it for me. And they sang a couple songs, and I'm thinking, oh, it's sort of the same old stuff. And then the minister came out, and he was a short guy, but all of a sudden the message he was delivering, it just grabbed me and shook me. It was so astounding to hear something that finally made sense to me. It made sense to the greater part of me, my whole. It was like, wow, there is something out there spiritually and religiously that thinks like I think. That it was just an awakening. It was an awakening from, like, I've been asleep my whole life. I'd been sleepwalking through life, and all of a sudden, what this gentleman was saying just changed me. That day stands out as one of those 5 or 6 times in your life when it just hits home. And from there, my life, I think it had dissolved, and all of a sudden that was almost like a resurrection. And from that point on, got over the girlfriend, found a new girlfriend, married the new girlfriend, found a new job where there was a mentor there who not only mentored me but became a close friend and grew me to rise to bigger and better things in my career. And I really am grateful for that experience now. And looking back on it, it was funny how I was holding on to things and holding on to stereotypes about what churches were and really not exploring it. And I'm thankful I did. So that's my story.
Thank you. Very good.
Thank you.
Okay. So as you go through this dissolving stage, and although it may not be like Rich's, you'll all go through your own, it's important to remember that, one, it is a necessary stage in the evolution of your transformation, and two, on the heels of that realization, embody the words of our founder, Dr. Ernest Holmes, and this is on page 282 and 302 combined. Stay with the one and never deviate from it. Never leave it for a moment. Nothing else can equal this attitude. Remember, all the power of the universe is with you. Feel it, know it, and then act as though it were true. You are not depending on a reed shaken by the wind, but on the principle of life itself for all that you have or ever shall need. It is not some power or even a great power. It is all power, and it is the power on which you can depend. To desert this truth, and this is all in caps, to desert this truth in the hour of need, in the hour of our dissolving, is to prove that we do not know the truth. When things look the worst, that is when the supreme moment, it is the supreme moment to demonstrate to ourselves that there are no obstructions to the operations of truth. When things look the worst, it is the best time to work, the most satisfying time to work. The person who can throw himself with the complete abandon into the limitless sea of receptivity, having cut loose from all the apparent moorings, is the one who will always receive the greatest reward. And on the other side of dissolving is flying. So be sure to be with us each week as we move to that wonderful place of flying. And so it is.